and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you joining us today. Well, another week has come in, and on this week's edition of the Spotlight, we are going to talk about something very important to us, that is the industry of tourism in Sri Lanka. Now, this industry really drives the economy of Sri Lanka. So, join me in welcoming Shenelle and Shehaan on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
I don't think you all need any introductions. Very famous, fondly known as Shenelle, right?
Yes.
So, how did this start off? Was it a passion project, or was it one day you really said, I'm going to start traveling?
I think it initially, like if you go back to the very beginning, started off when we were a bit younger, around 2017. We each had a decision in our lives, like a career that we were kind of working towards. Shehaan was in brand management. I was studying marketing, but we also had this penchant for travel. So what we decided was, from 2016 to 17, we were like quite broke kids, at the time. So we saved up for an entire year. We planned, and we went on this 30-day backpacking trip to Thailand. So this was our first time traveling out of the country together, as well as traveling for so long.
Yeah,
and it was
days,
it was a long time. So we had given like previous notice and everything, but it's because we really wanted to experience, and we decided we can do budget. We were willing to go like very low budget and kind of stretch it out and like just rough it out just to experience more. We had this like desire to experience more. We like traveling in Sri Lanka as well, and I think both of our families took us to travel quite a bit. I know Shehaan's family had taken him around quite a bit as well when they were young. So we had this appreciation for culture, and I think we wanted to see that in a different light as well. And it was this trip that really made us decide, wow, this is something that we really enjoy, simply because of how much it opened our eyes and pushed our perspectives, and made us realize so much more about the world. And then we came back and we realized that it impacted the way that we saw the world when we came back as well. And so we marinated on that for a little while. And
initially it was sort of a dream, a sort of passion sort of thing that we wanted to do, and it was all about how can we travel for a living. Wasn't necessarily, we weren't necessarily thinking of, we'll be able to build an entire business around it as we have today. But it's been a continuously like evolving process. Started out with our passion for travel and love for travel, and then
but even the idea that we could even travel for a living came from this trip, because it exposed us to people who had been traveling for 6 months or a year, and they had certain skills that they had like picked up. So it really opened our eyes and gave us the time to come back and think about, okay, if we want to make this happen, what are the skills that we need to pick up and develop? Online work was like a huge thing, being location independent work that allowed you to work remotely. So these are all the things that were so new to us after that trip, that we had to come back and kind of rethink everything that we had thought about in our lives
and figure out how we were going to do it.
Yeah, because we hadn't been, you're raised to have a very stable direction in your life.
True. And when you start tourism, people might be thinking, how will you survive off it? Right?
I mean, absolutely.
It's not like a 9-to-5 job where you're sure of getting 50 or 100,000 a month.
In fact, I think back then it didn't seem feasible to anyone at all that you could make a full-time career of.
And this was back in 2017.
Yes.
Correct. So and you couldn't really think of what it would, now looking back, you can see how it has worked out. But at that time, you couldn't really think of, how could you do something on Instagram
that
would pay you per se.
Enough so that you could live.
Now Instagram is like a mode of living.
And I mean that even the next step, which was YouTube, even we couldn't fathom that. Like we wanted to be able to create content on YouTube and be paid for it. But it sounded like such a nice idea, but nobody around us was doing it. So it was hard to imagine, okay, maybe since no one is doing it, it's probably because it's not going to work. Is anyone interested in seeing Sri Lankan content creators? So there were so many questions, so much of the unknown that we had to kind of take risks and step out into. But I think that's how it all started, where we just saw something and decided, okay, I think we could have a shot at this.
So when you all started back then, did you all have YouTube as a first option, or was it just wanting to really travel and get the experience?
It was wanting to travel.
First was travel.
Yeah, first was travel, and then
Then we worked backwards on how can we make it happen.
Right.
Yeah, so we had like different things. We tried Instagram, then we understood, okay,
This is how it works.
This is how it works, but we also realized, okay, we need multiple platforms to have a better chance. So then we moved on to YouTube, I think around 2018, 2019. And then that's where I think we started realizing the opportunity to monetize the content.
So when you all started with YouTube, you all did the shooting, you all did the editing.
We still do all of it. So it's the two of us. And we actually feel like that's one of our strengths.
Yeah.
We managed to be very dynamic.
And self-sufficient, right?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. And because we've learned along the way, we sort of kind of know every component of what a production entails for us now. So even when we witness something or experience something, immediately between the two of us, we can understand, okay, what is it going to take for us to be able to tell this story? And then also, like, you know, when times get tough, as it has been for the industry in the last 4 years, it's just the two of us. As long as we had a roof over our heads and we had some meals to eat, we were able to just take on all those things by ourselves and continue to push out content.
And when you do your own work, you're sure that it will be...
There's definitely
there is trust, right? Because when you give it to someone, you'll be like, will he do it right?
Yeah.
You know?
We were definitely perfectionists from the beginning. Every aspect because we didn't know videography, we didn't know photography, we didn't know how to use a camera, we didn't know how to film. So from the get-go, we were, like you said, we were working backwards. We decided we wanted to travel. We have to kind of get the social media things active. Okay, so we have Instagram and YouTube. Now we need to think about how can we make valuable content for people that's going to make them want to be a part of our journey. And then from that, working backwards from that was, okay, we need to now be able to create content that requires a camera that takes photos for Instagram. We need to learn how to film videos and edit videos. Sound was such a big thing. We didn't know how important that was. Investing in the gear, and of course learning how to edit. Like, so little by little, all these were like challenges that we had to face and kind of like overcome. But they
turned out to be our biggest strengths.
Because now when it comes to the process, we know everything backwards. We know exactly how we want it to sound. We want to know what it has to look like. You know, we can
have
do
the vision now.
And it's also, I think, now as the market gets more saturated, it also becomes harder to copy our style, because our style is so
it's very unique. I mean, people say, you know, even it's very the color schemes, it's just
and it's
very
all
different.
It's all developing. It's still developing. It's like a constant evolution, because if we go back and look at our first few videos, we're appalled. We can't like watch it for like no more than 2 minutes. But if we go back and watch a video we uploaded yesterday, we'd still see so many errors in that, and we're like, oh no, this needs to be better, that needs to be better. I don't think we've ever uploaded a video that we're 100% happy with. We've worked on it till the deadline has come, and then we just have to put it up. So we are constantly learning and constantly trying to improve ourselves. So that is, I mean, it's a good thing, I think.
Yeah. Now, even y'all do the shooting yourself, right? Did y'all have any issues? You know, there are things like policies and rules. You can't shoot here. Have you all encountered that? And let me just ask, when y'all shoot back in the day, I mean, I'm still very nervous to take a picture alone, right? Did y'all have that issue back in the day?
Like to feel shy?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Shehaan had so much trouble with me. He's like, you wanted to do this? No, why you have to go and pose now in front of all these people? I'm like, no, I'm shy. Can we wait until they go?
They go,
but I think, I mean, we had to learn to sort of get over it. And I think there are still segments, there are still times when Shenelle's like, I don't want to have to take this like 5 times in front of all these people. But like after doing it multiple, like now over 3 or 4 years, now we're like, okay, it's fine. These people are going to laugh at us now, but like when they see the video, they'll probably understand what's happening.
And I think now, earlier I had a bit of that imposter syndrome where I would be like, oh, people will be like, oh my God, look at this girl, she's being so silly. And because I was just starting out, and I didn't also, we didn't have that audience that was supporting us back then.
It was a new market.
Yeah, I also felt like a little bit like silly, to be honest, right? Now, when I have to go and film something in front of a crowd, I still feel like, oh, these people probably think I'm so silly, like another like content creator. But at the back of my mind, I also know that there's like an entire like 100,000 odd people on YouTube that are going to be happy that we did this
and
that this
and that we
content
did it right. Like they watch how we do that, and so now
Yeah.
when it's like our own art that we're creating.
Yeah,
and
so I feel more sure and less shy about.
All right. So now, in addition to taking pictures in crowds, do you all have to get special licenses or clearances from offices to shoot?
Yeah. So initially when we started, we were shooting off mobile phones and things like that. Yeah. So I mean, started there and then gradually over time into other equipment. Most of the time, we didn't have to get any permission. I think it's only when we got the drone. Then we started having to apply for permissions and things like that. And even still, like, we try to shoot in a way where we don't have to, unless it's like a corporate sort of production that requires us to go out there and like shoot a specific place. We don't really have to go and get permission like that. But like if you're like, for example, we've never shot Sigiriya because obviously you have to go and get all those permissions. So we try to steer away from getting into that situation, because the beauty of YouTube is that it's more about the way you tell the story. So we try to tell that story without like having to get the really hard shots. But there are times where we have had to go and get permissions and things like that, and it can be challenging, but also the truth is there's a gray area when you're a YouTuber. Like, okay, if you're allowed to take the video with a camera, with a phone, why can't you take it? Like, you can still say I'm shooting YouTube with a phone or with a camera. So like that, there is that gray area there. But initially it was very hard to get permission to explain to people what it is we were doing. There have been instances where people have like flat out said no, nothing doing, and like gone out into issues. But now over time, I think because of people know what it is we're doing, there's a lot more support. Yeah, there's awareness and there's more support. Like once people understand the reason as to why you're filming it, most often they're more supportive and willing to come on board and help. And
now, I think when COVID hit or when the crisis hit, correct me if I'm wrong, you all did this tour around Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
We were at a very difficult time. How did you all manage that? Where did you all actually go? I can't remember if it was...
so it was...
Was it during the crisis?
Yeah, it was during the crisis.
Okay.
So it was, I think, May 2022, we were in Thailand.
Okay.
And we had just secured our first international tourism board deal with the Thai Tourism Authority. And we were just about to start, and we obviously this situation was evolving every week here. But then it really took a turn, I think, in May. Yeah. And at that point, we understood like all our work, even though we were trying to go abroad and do stuff abroad, we understood that our most impactful work was always the work we did back here. And at that time, we knew that we had to do something in our channel. Like we had to showcase that how could we come out of this, or what would tourism look like if there was no petrol in the country. So that's how we started sort of like thinking about it. At the time, we were watching this international YouTuber, like a content creator podcast, where they had focused on another YouTuber in the States who traveled across the States with a penny. It was called a Penny Series Challenge by Ryan Trahan. And he was raising funds throughout the entire process. It was a revolutionary campaign which he vlogged every day for 30 days. So we saw that and we thought, you know what, Sri Lanka needs help. It's got a lot of eyeballs on it at the moment in a negative light. And there's an opportunity for us to try and do something positive here. So that's when we started like figuring out, okay, how do we do this? And then we came up with the crazy idea. Like it was literally trying to figure out how we could do it. Like, okay, if we
how can we travel?
How can we travel around the whole country when there was no petrol?
Not even the whole country. I think we first started thinking, say, okay, but maybe we can do like traveling short distances, maybe then we were like, maybe we can ride a bicycle and then we can go to like things that you can ride through bicycle.
Yeah.
Somewhere within your radius.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then we were like, well, what if we just like rode to, say, Panadura, we stopped there for the night and then we rode a little bit more and then a little bit more. And
Yeah, and
So
then
that's how it came into.
then we started planning it and we realized, you know what, it would be epic if we could cycle around the whole country. And so then we planned it. We bought our bikes in Thailand because there were no bikes in Sri Lanka
there
at
was
the
a
time.
demand, like
Yeah.
people who are not riding bikes were riding bikes.
Yeah. So we bought our bikes, came down.
we started
and
training.
We started training
and
for a
like
month.
I immediately after the first
Training?
training to ride the bicycle,
Right.
because we were very unfit actually.
Okay.
And we like did that for 2 days, and I looked at Shan and I said, there is no way I'm going to ride this bicycle around the country. Like it's going to take me forever. I said we need to get some electric bikes, and so that's the next thing we did. We sold the bikes that we bought, and then we looked into an electric bike because honestly it was more feasible for us, and it's more feasible for just general people, tourists, because to ride your bicycle around the country you need to have a certain level of fitness, which not every tourist can have, but there are people who have it. But if you to ride an electric bike around the country, you don't need like a special fitness level.
You don't need to be an athlete.
You don't
could
need-
be anyone. Like quite honestly, everyone here could get on an electric bike and do 50 kilometers if they wanted to.
Yeah.
So we looked at it like that. And again, back then, our mindset was we don't even know if Sri Lanka will have petrol in another 6 months. Like back then, we didn't know we were going to come out of this. So we were thinking, okay, if this is going to be the new normal for tourism, how can we make it work? Let's take a proactive step to show what tourism might look like in a country that doesn't have petrol.
But we have a solution.
Yeah.
And the other aspect of this campaign was that we really wanted to showcase that Sri Lanka was safe, because we had damaged our brand image quite a bit. And most of the questions we were getting was, is it safe? I know there are like riots, I know there's this, I know there's that. Like even people were willing to come regardless of the petrol thing, I think, as well, because it was kind of known that the tourists and certain cab companies got a pass. But then the issue became, is it safe for me to travel? Is there food? Is there medicine? These are the things that like tourists wanted to know. So we thought, why not just get on the road, cycle, and along the way, we can stop and talk to people. We spoke to doctors and just give them the real live thing from the ground.
And Shenelle, being a girl cycling around the country in what was considered the most dangerous time, was good. The best sort of message you could put out there, saying, look, it's safe, obviously. Thankfully it was safe. I mean, we also didn't really know what was going to happen.
Honestly, we were scared when we left. We weren't scared when we started, but then like our friends were like, be careful, you know, like it's
Take a
tough.
knife.
You know, people can like change, you know, when it's tough, people change and things like that. But honestly, people were so nice. Everyone we spoke to on the road, every farmer, every tractor driver, everyone was like, oh wow, you're cycling, come to our house for a meal, come, I'll give you all a cup of tea, you all must be tired. People were so kind, north, east, south, everywhere.
All right. So that was a very life-changing experience.
100%.
For sure. 43 days, 1,400 kilometers.
Wow.
And it was just the two of us.
Just the two of you.
With our camera gears, our laptops, and we were editing on the way. It was intense. I don't know how we topped that, but it was one of the best things we did.
Amazing. All right, welcome back to the show. This week we have with us Shenelle and Shehaan on the show, on the Spotlight, to talk about something very important to us as Sri Lankans. Thank you once again for joining. All right, so now you all do this as a steady profession now. How do you all navigate through the financial challenges that come along with it?
I think Shehaan is best suited to answer this question.
I mean, it's been trial and error. We've had to figure out different models to work for us. So initially it was, actually from the start, we kind of quit everything else and we went into this.
Exactly, that's such a huge risk.
Yeah.
You know, that's very... were all scared at any point?
Always. We were scared the whole time. But also I think we realized that for us, we don't advise people to do this, but for us, I think burning the bridges behind us meant that we had no way but forward. And
we had to figure it out.
we had to figure it out. Yeah.
It was tough, obviously, at the start, but then as a result of that, we had to keep innovating and find different ways of monetizing our content. So going back to where we started, like we started thinking, okay, we could be like the traditional social media, what it was back then, social media, conventional influencers or creators on these platforms and earn from the platforms. But very soon we realized, you know what, not many people are really interested in Sri Lankan travel bloggers, and that was going to take us a long time to get to a point where it's financially viable. So then we realized, okay, now we have to figure out another way to make money and also be able to do this content and build this portfolio over a period of time. That's when we sort of took the stance of, okay, Chanel's a model. There are lots of like clothing brands that would want to work with us. We are also going to like some of the best destinations in the country. So let's do photo shoots for these clothing brands and charge them separately while we are shooting our content.
That's like a supplementary income.
A supplementary income. So we started like that, sort of looking at like other brands that we could work with while we were doing our main thing.
Then the hotels.
Then came in the hotels. So then we realized, look, hotels are not going to pay to, back then, they didn't want to pay to be on our platform. So we had to say, look, let us come and stay at your hotel and we'll show you on our platform, but additionally, we will create all the pieces or content that you need for your social media channels.
So that could be photography, that could be short videos on
blog articles,
whatever
like
they kind of needed. We would curate it to their preference.
And those were things they were willing to pay for, because anyhow they were paying a professional for that. And so we were essentially sort of tapping into that market. And I think like 2 to 3 years we completely rode on that, working with hotels. I think we have to give a huge shout out to all those hotels for like partnering with us. Because Sri Lankan creators back then, it wasn't a market. Everyone looked for if you want creators. A foreign blogger to review your hotel. But then when the pandemic happened, or when the Easter tax happened, when the pandemic happened, then there weren't as many foreign bloggers. So that gave us an opportunity to really shine, and we fully capitalized on it. Like every week we were in and out. We were shooting 3 days of the week, back at home editing, week in, week out, just maximize.
Back to back. It was a little tough as well, but it was like that window of opportunity that we saw. So we absolutely took it.
And that was only, even at that point, I think it's really important to sort of stress that even at that point, it wasn't a profitable venture. It was just giving us enough money to go on to the next week, and then to invest into a little bit more equipment to sort of become more professional. And I think the first 3 years was just continuous.
Very tough.
But it was
tough. But also I think like we had, there were certain things like we weren't planning on getting married like at that time. We were kind of supported still like a bit by our parents as well at the time. So that helped us, we have to be very transparent.
For sure. I mean, we were living with our parents. So we knew we
capitalized on that. We knew we were doing that, so we could take a little bit more risk every month, knowing that we had certain things.
A little support from
like for example, we always knew even if we had no money, which was the case for a lot of those years, we still have food at home. So it was like whenever
and a roof over our head.
Whenever we made any money, we weren't reluctant saying, oh, we need to save this for food next week, but we were like, okay, let's put this into the next project. And so we had to kind of bootstrap it and work it like that for 3 to 4 years.
But I think that is really what helped us to grow, because that reinvesting everything that we earned back into improving ourselves, improving our gear,
building out the business,
that improved our the quality. It improved the consistency.
And even from an investment point, today when we look back, there would have been no better investment for us to make with any of the money we made 4 years ago. If you look at it today, our currency devalued I think almost 100%. So the equipment we bought is worth far more today. And
so it's great investment.
It was it not only did the equipment we bought hold the value that we had made, but it also generated more income for us over the years. And so today when we look back at that, we suffered and we invested, poured out everything that we had, but we built a business that today we wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Someone starting out today would find it very hard to put that much of capital in to set up a thing like this now.
Yeah.
So.
And there was like the other aspect of it that like when you're doing something like this, there's a certain level of dedication and commitment and sacrifice that comes as well. That can come in the form of not going out with your friends as often, not eating out as often, not going out on the weekends. And those are all things that we had to sacrifice. I think we didn't see our friends or hang out with them properly. They saw like us maybe 3 or 4 times for almost a year because we were so busy trying to make this work. And that is the kind of priority you have to give something
and
like
discipline.
this. And discipline, absolutely.
But it helps when you're like so invested in it. Like it wasn't painful per se because it was what we
wanted.
We wanted. It's like when you're in school and you really want something, you're willing to do anything, right?
Yeah,
so it was that sort of
devotion.
Yeah. Which was,
all right. So let's talk about how important is it to the two of your tourism to Sri Lanka?
I mean, it's such an important thing. It has been such an important thing for the country for so many years.
Yeah.
And I think going forward, like what we try to use our platform is to kind of, first initially it was about developing tourism.
Yeah.
But I think now what we want with our travels, we have learned so much more about the culture as well as what people like about Sri Lanka because we kind of meet tourists so often. And also when we travel abroad to other countries where similar tourists go to those countries as well, we've been able to get a good understanding of why people choose Sri Lanka. So now I think the kind of content that we create is more geared towards that, is to show the other side of Sri Lanka. It's not just the usual tour route that you take. It's also to kind of show stakeholders as well that it's not about building rooms. It's not about finding a beautiful place, building rooms and putting ACs there and calling it a luxury hotel.
Yeah.
That's not
Much
what
more
people
than
are coming for, no. I mean, we have that. We can have that in certain, and we have Pasikuda for the beautiful resorts. We have certain, the beauty of Sri Lanka is that we're so diverse and we can allocate certain areas to be certain things. And then we can invite a variety of types of tourists.
For everyone here.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what we shouldn't do is take areas that are doing well for a certain type of tourist or a certain genre of tourism and try to change it into something else.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we're trying to do now by like kind of highlighting.
Creating awareness.
Yeah, creating awareness
From a point of like how important is it to us, like, you know, we sort of started in it and then now we see like, you know, the last 4 years, even though we grew exponentially through the industry was at its lowest really.
Yeah,
and
things were happening one after
the other, right? And if you look at it in comparison to what the rest of the region has seen in tourism numbers, Sri Lanka is yet to see its peak. And I think that time will come. Hopefully, if we have a clear run, we will see it definitely. I mean, there's very little marketing that Sri Lanka needs to do. Just the fact that
when
we have
like
the people coming and experiencing it is enough. And obviously when they go back and they tell other people about this country, then it's a definite, like everyone wants to come to Sri Lanka because it's not a Thailand, it's not a Bali, it's not a country that everyone else has been to. There's very few people that actually come to Sri Lanka. So as a result, there is this sort of charm or this enchanting sort of feel to like, oh, I want to experience Sri Lanka because no one else even knows about Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
We have that to our advantage, and that invariably it's going to happen. Sri Lanka tourism is going to peak. So what I think from what Shenelle was saying is our approach those days when Sri Lanka was going through all the hardships was, let's promote Sri Lanka, let's promote Sri Lanka, let's promote, get the word out. Today we're taking more of a stance of let's protect Sri Lanka, because we also need to understand that what
while
happens.
Tourism is very important for the country, there are certain things that need to be taken into consideration with growing tourism. And that is the protection of the environment, the culture, the tradition, all these things that create this beautiful environment that make people want to come. Essentially, you don't want to kill the golden goose, right?
Definitely.
And that's something that needs to be communicated.
And the thing is, there are so many, because the way we see it, I mean, we are just one small outlet of media online. There are so many other forces that play to promote, to do different things. And what we've understood is this specific area, like what we are trying to do now is create more depth into what the tourism product is. Like you said, focus on the other niches in the market, sort of building more depth into all these other components that Sri Lanka tourism could be, and then also urging our local stakeholders to think about protecting what we have here and not just exploiting it for the short gain, as we have seen in Bali right now is suffering because they took a very exploitative approach to all that influx of tourism they had.
And it's such a small island, and now they're struggling with a huge trash problem. Their rivers are filled with trash.
Water, resources. Of course, we are a much bigger island than Bali, but
we can take lessons from them, because I think a lot of people think that, oh, look at Bali, Sri Lanka can be like Bali, but I think that's a dated idea. We don't want to be like Bali. We want to be
like Sri Lanka.
We want to be like Sri Lanka.
We want to make the best product of what Sri Lanka is really.
And we can learn from the mistakes that have been made in places like Bali and understand that mass tourism is tricky. So we are going to increase tourism, and it is beneficial to us, but it just has to be done in tandem with protection. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, maybe sustainable would be a better word, I guess. But
you're all advocating for sustainability as well.
Absolutely.
Of course.
That as well.
I think growing tourism sustainably is really important. So being sustainable with the environment and protecting that as well while you're growing tourism in certain areas is important.
I think one thing we haven't taken into account, because it's been so abundant to us in this island, is we have so much of wildlife. We have so many national parks, and our beaches were pristine till very recent really, and we still have lots of untouched beaches around the island. And so we don't ever see a time when that won't be the case, because it's been the situation for the last so many years, and that's been as a result of the war, as a result of all the hiccups we've had. But that could change very soon if we are not careful on how we develop. And so while some may think that, oh, we are being like what's the word I'm looking for, like too conservative or like worrying too much about what's going to happen before
it happens.
Tourism numbers have even picked up.
It's important to talk about it now, so that there's
people are ready.
People are ready for it when
and aware.
Definitely. I think that's
and in our work now, as much as possible as we can, I mean, we have to find a balance between doing trendy content that works on these algorithms, but then at the same time trying to underline, have a underlying sort of message,
like a responsibility
that we're sort of trying to push in. So I think from a sustainability point, that's what we're trying to push through our work.
I think it's important. I think as creators, as people who have influence, as people who create content about tourism and potentially invite travelers here, I think it's also important for us to have conversations with the local stakeholders, with businesses, and kind of come together and think how we want to increase tourism, we want to increase the income to all these stakeholders, but we should do it in a desperation to overcome from the very difficult past 4 years. We shouldn't create a path of destruction, I would say, but instead we should use this time to gear ourselves in the correct way, so we can invite the correct type of people to the correct type of areas and develop in the best way for the island.
And now we've also talked about responsibility, right? How do you think you could advise our Sri Lankans living here to protect what we have? You were talking about parks and things like that. Sometimes you go to Yala and one jeep, you see a leopard. Then the tracker will inform the rest of the 30 jeeps. And then you see about 30 jeeps near this leopard, and the poor fellow is scared. And then what would you tell our Sri Lankans? I mean, it's a balance of seeing the animal, and it's also a balance of protecting the state of mind as well.
I think Yala is definitely one example, but in any aspect, when we travel, we as the people who are the traveler have a lot of influence, whether I am traveling in like Bali or Thailand, or whether we are traveling in Nurelia or Alla or Yala.
Or take the example of Yala, like you said, right?
Yeah.
So say, if we are the person paying that driver,
We have influence.
we have the influence to tell the driver, I don't want you to take
drive
me.
fast.
If you get a call, I don't want to go there. And
Yeah.
we know people who do that. And
Yeah.
so in our work, and what we try to influence people is saying, hey, look, if you come to Yala,
You have the power.
in our work,
Yeah.
over the last 4 videos of Yala we've made, we've never put emphasis on just seeing a leopard in Yala. There is Situl Power, there is the Tissamarama, there is the there's a Raja Mahaviharya.
Yes.
There are so many other
Yeah,
relics
things
and
to see.
things to see. So what we would encourage our locals as well as foreign tourists coming is to say, look, you have influence over these vendors. If you tell them no, don't do that,
Yeah.
they can't do that because
Yeah.
you're the one paying them. The issue is that a lot of people
Are okay.
are
or
okay
don't
and
say with
incentivize it. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, the reason all these Jeep drivers do this actually is because
They
if
get
they
a
show a leopard,
Yeah.
they get a tip of maybe 2,000 or 5,000 bucks.
Yeah.
So from their point of view, their earning is X capacity, and every time they show a leopard is a bonus.
Yeah.
Which employee doesn't want a bonus, right?
Yeah.
So they're obviously going to keep doing that. We have to understand that that's that incentive one. But if we go in there and say, look, our bonus is going to be based on not seeing a leopard, but our bonus is going to be based on having an ethical experience.
Yeah, ethical experience, or what other enriching things can you show me in the park? Like, the park has such biodiversity, and that's just the park. If you're going whale watching, you can tell your boat driver, look, seeing the whales is important to me, but I don't want you to go near the whale. I don't want you to drive over them. I don't want you to disturb them, because these are all things that cause mental disturbances to the animal.
Yeah.
I want to respectfully do it. They will very gladly make sure that you do see the thing, and they will respect your
Wishes as well.
wishes
Yeah.
to do it, because it's a matter of what you want. If you're traveling somewhere and you see that the vendor is using plastic or throwing it on the ground, and if you say, look, I really don't want you to do this because this area is so beautiful and people are coming here, and the more people that come, the more business you have, so you should try to dispose of it separately.
And
I don't want you to use a plastic straw. I don't want a plastic straw.
And we see great examples of it. Like there are, if you look at Thambili selling vendors in
Yeah.
Colombo, and if you look at them down south, the guys in Colombo will still give you a plastic straw, but the guys down south will have a metal straw,
Yeah.
right? And that is only because tourists who go there refuse to use plastic. And they insist on this. So these guys are like, oh, let me take it one step higher. They charge 150, let's say.
Yeah.
Colombo, they charge 100. But at the end of the day, it's the consumer that gets to dictate terms on how we move forward.
Yeah.
And our approach has been to try and
Bring those to light.
Bring those to light and create awareness
and in
there.
our videos, we always communicate that, because the kind of people that watch our videos are also very sustainable. They're very conscious travelers, and we talk to a lot of the foreign people who are doing research to come to Sri Lanka, and we want to make them aware that this option is available to them. So we always talk about it, whether you're whale watching, whether you're climbing a waterfall and you see some trash, it's okay for you to bring some of the trash that's there. Even if it's not yours, you can pick it up and come and dispose of it separately. These are all great ways for us to be conscious travelers, and when you do that, you influence the people in the area.
All right, so that was a very insightful, because people need to know, what is our responsibility when we head into the wildlife or into the park or into,
Definitely.
anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's important that they know where they stand. Well, so much to talk about, so little time, and we are on this week's edition of the Spotlight with Shenelle and Shehaan on the show. All right, we were talking just off air about safety. Let's talk a bit about that as well. There's harassment we see when it comes to tourists. How do you address this issue?
I think Shehaan has something that you wanted to say.
Yeah, I think there are, it comes in many forms. But one thing we've seen, and we're trying to encourage local stakeholders to be a part of, is, there is always opportunity for you to also step in and educate someone when you see them doing something wrong. So for example, something we see happen all over, and I'm sure a lot of the public sees happening, is these tuk-tuk vendors who harass foreigners. Anytime you see a foreigner walking on the road, you will most likely see every tuk-tuk going past,
tailing them.
And that is a very unpleasant experience. And most often what happens is we just, as locals, as stakeholders, we observe it and just go by. But recently we took it upon ourselves to just stop and talk to the tuk-tuk guy and say, what are you doing? Gently educate them and tell them, look, what are you doing? Why would you do that? You are giving them a bad experience. We've already suffered as a country and we are relying on these tourists coming back. What you're doing is doing more harm.
And also they don't know that all these tourists talk to each other and that they have Facebook groups where they post on and research on before coming, and so they obviously get warned about this scam, this tourist trap and everything beforehand. So when this experience happens, they're going to go back and talk to each other and say, be careful of the tuk-tuk drivers when you're walking this way, or like avoid them. So what we would advise them would be like, instead offer them like, be like, hey, I can take you to these places, here are some things. Okay, no, you don't want to do, that's fine, somebody else is there, but don't make them uncomfortable.
And like it goes even in other situations, you know, catcalling is a serious issue here. Especially a lot, you know, one really sad thing about tourism in Sri Lanka is that women don't feel as safe. We interview so many tourists all around the country, and one question, it's unanimous amongst female travelers that they don't think it's a safe country to travel alone. There are the daring female solo travelers who do it.
Very experienced, seasoned female travelers that can handle it because they know how to take care of themselves. But a lot of them have said straight up, we don't recommend it, especially for young girls and things like that.
And that is again something that we as citizens of this country have to address. We need to talk to people when we see it happening. We need to call it out. Most often they're young teenagers, right, who are just shouting and saying unnecessary things, whereas you could call them out, right? If a foreigner can't do that, but you as a local can call that person out. And I think it is like so important that we all take on that responsibility to call people out when you see that. Like if you see, if ever you see a tourist, female or male, being harassed, you should go there and just find out and see what's happening, because at the end of the day we're all ambassadors for our country.
Absolutely.
And we need to ensure that whoever comes to our country has a great experience of it. And these are small things for us to do, and most often if you approach it in the right way, obviously approach it in the right way.
Educational, always, never in an aggressive fighting way.
Because that can lead to an even worse experience for everyone. But it is so important that we as stakeholders understand that this is an issue. This is one of the biggest sort of detriments to our tourism, because we have everything else going for us, but we have this one component
that has to be
addressed. And that is something that unfortunately our education sector has lacked in sort of educating people all around as to how to look after just
each other.
And then there is where we need to step in and sort of encourage that.
Now, twisting the question into the other way, what are some of the recommendations you all would have in mind, you know, for the foreseeable future to sort of enhance our tourism sector in Sri Lanka, to bring in more people?
For sure.
So
safety is one. I think focusing on service rather than product. There is a lot of opportunity for Sri Lankans to offer more services, and the return on investment in offering services. So that could be, for example, if you are running an operation now in Valigama, rather than putting up another 3 rooms, taking a loan and putting up 3 rooms and trying to sell the rooms, focus on a service. Do a a village tour on bike. Do a cooking tour with your grandmother. Those sort of things will give you far more revenue and will require far less investment.
A cycling tour, or like, you know, farming, you know, come visit the local farmers, or these small things that are like very normal for our people, but are like so novel and enriching experience.
Because when you say farm, everyone thinks of one particular farm in your area.
Yes.
That's just the way.
Exactly.
But there are more.
Exactly.
There are things like the choir production, like these women that go into the water to kind of like do certain activities.
Yeah, like they take coconut husk and they like
put it in the water, and so they have to like go into the water. It's a very unique thing. I saw it in Hirikete, and it just happens behind like this
no one talks about it.
Hotel.
And like a tour for a tourist, that sort of thing, they'd spend $20 on just learning what that is.
We were just filming around that property, and I went and I saw it, and they like vaguely said, oh, there's this like choir production thing that's happening at the back and all, and I was like, okay. And I went there and I saw these ladies doing it. It's such an incredible thing that they're doing. And there were already like a few tourists who were like taking some videos because they too had just stumbled upon it. So it's something that they would love to have. She was like, do you know anything about what's happening here? I said, honestly, I don't. But she was interested. So these are the kind of things that we can do. Just share more about our culture with the world.
There's so much we have to offer.
There's so much.
I think that, like you said, we shouldn't try. The best way for us to improve would be to not try to be like other countries. Don't compare Sri Lanka to Bali. Don't ask why Sri Lanka is not like Dubai or why it's not like this country. We are Sri Lanka. So the best thing that we can do is share what being Sri Lankan is with the world. That is our culture, that's our tradition, that's our food, that's the diversity of our culture. There's so many things.
And like from a point of like developing tourism going forward, it would be far more sustainable if more people geared themselves, especially considering what has happened in the past, right? If you just think of it logically, you don't want to go and put in an investment now just for the fear of all the troubles we've been in, right? If something goes wrong again, you have to take on the debt. There's a huge debt moratorium already as it is. So in that sense, focusing on a business model that is service oriented is far more sustainable, and that can be scaled massively all around the country. And I think that would be one of the best ways for us to really boost our revenues in tourism. Of course, there will be people who bring in the rooms and stuff also. But
and like I said, because I feel so passionately about it, I spoke about this earlier and I want to add it in again. I think that understanding that being better doesn't mean, again, more rooms. It doesn't mean cutting down more trees and putting up more structures. It actually means preserving this beautiful, lush environment that we have and keeping Sri Lanka ecologically pristine, ecologically diverse, the biodiversity of the plants and the animals, as well as just kind of developing, but in a more natural way, is what people want to see, because they're coming from New York. They're coming from Europe. They don't want to see those concrete jungles here. That's not what they're coming for. They don't want to see, skyscrapers or like high-rise buildings by the side of the beach. They're coming for the hut. They're coming for the cabanas. They're coming for the thatched roof. And like, granted, you can make it still modern and luxurious. Like, there's this lovely bamboo structure in Alla, which is like so unique, but also so natural and earthy, that it fits into that landscape really well. So there are these like interesting ways to develop, and if we can just like kind of highlight that to our stakeholders, that would definitely be the best way forward for us.
All right, time has caught up, and just as much, I would love to continue the conversation. I'm getting instructions that time is up.
I think you have more questions as well.
Yes, I do. But thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having us.
And this video, I hope it will change lives for the better.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your wonderful questions.
I hope I had more to ask, but maybe we can have a part 2 very
maybe
soon.
if people like it.
Definitely. So thank you once again, and wishing the two of you nothing but the best.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that brings us to yet another week of the Spotlight. Join me again next Monday, same time, same place, for a story that will ignite change. Until we meet again, stay safe and have a pleasant night.